Hey, good morning, Lviv. Um, March 2nd, I believe it's, Wednesday, March 2nd. Yeah, yeah, what a difference a week makes, you know, unbelievable. So yesterday afternoon, there was a air raid siren. We went down to the shelter. They told us go up, and then they kind of told us come back, and then they told us go up. But we don't know what triggered it. Still, I'm suspecting just some aircraft wandering along the border, patrol aircraft, and they're just being precautionary. So, but yeah, the tension is definitely high, and yeah, yeah. So it was only one yesterday in that afternoon, and then I took a trip to the supermarket. Definitely, there's some shortages, but it's weird. There's like surplus of one thing and a shortage of another. So day before yesterday, there was full of couscous, and that was all gone today, and it was full of sushi rice. So every day it's like a lottery what's there. Um, Chocolate, there's plenty of chocolate and cookies, believe it or not. I thought that would be one of the first things to go, but some of the stuff is gone. Like one brand is gone and another is there. And apparently the rice cakes are gone, but all the Swedish and crisp bread, the Wasa bread, the stuff Scandinavians like to eat, that was all there. So maybe Ukrainians aren't used to it or understand what it is, but it's actually a pretty good carbohydrate to have. So yeah, that's my neighbor. He's in the Viber group, and he said that the supply chain is working, but things are like the way I saw it. They get a lot of one thing and then they don't have something else. So it's functioning, but not at full capacity. But stuff is still getting through, so we're not in a crisis mode yet. But the supermarket is definitely getting depleted with some things, and then you might have to wait a couple days before it shows up again. So it takes a little bit more forward planning. I'm one of these guys. I go to the supermarket every day and just buy what I need for the day. So that's changing. To stock up a little bit more. I mean, I'm prepped in all this here, but the thing is, not everybody is prepped. So these situations affect everybody, and if you're prepped and everyone else is not, it doesn't lead to anything good. So prepping is supposed to be a community thing, not an individual thing. So it's important to talk to the neighbors, because when people don't have food, things change really bad, really quick. It can change for the worse quickly, I should say. I've resolved to stay as long as Zelensky can keep himself alive. He's running around in a flak jacket, and he's like George Washington. Really, really amazing guy. I didn't expect that from a former movie star, but we got to hang in there with him and Klitschko and Poroshenko and all the others. So there was a lot of talk about Putin the other day and his chain of command. Putin is kind of like Saddam, that apparently people are afraid of him. Well, we know that people get poisoned, people disappear. So that distorts the information that goes to him. People tell him what he wants to hear, not what he needs to hear. So he thought that he would be liberating Ukraine and that his weapons were far superior and his soldiers were better trained than they actually are. So he got a very optimistic picture of his army and then a very pessimistic picture of Ukraine. And he made a lot of, decisions based on faulty information. So a lot of people are speculating that's what happened over the years, that he had just surrounded himself with yes men, and they just gave him faulty information in fear of their life. And now he's having mental health issues. I was reading in some different sources. He's hiding in the Ural Mountains, and no one can come within 10 meters of him, or 10 feet. And there was a picture of him and Lavrov sitting on the other side of the room from each other talking. I don't know if that's a new picture, an old picture, a doctored picture. It's really, really hard with information now to know what's vetted, especially if it's coming from Russia. Of concern still is the 65-kilometer long convoy outside Kiev. I don't have to find out what's going on with that today and how that's being addressed, but That's a lot of vehicles. That's 40 U.S. miles long of vehicles, armored vehicles and tanks and soldiers. And, if they're going to seize the city, I think that convoy is going to be the hammer, that comes down. So, but again, it's one thing to seize a city and another thing to hold it after you got it. The city of Kherson in the south apparently has fallen, according to the feeds I'm reading. But there is some good news that it looks like the javelins are being used with a lot of success. The Stingers are being used with a lot of success. Helicopters are falling out of the sky. Russian helicopters are falling out of the sky. So it's like some mixed news, but right now the momentum is building in favor of the Russians. It looks like they're getting their people to the front quicker than our weapons seem to be getting into the battle space. I mean, some Polish MiGs were donated and apparently picked up yesterday. The Poles aren't saying anything. It was the Ukrainians were saying thank you, but the Poles are just keeping their mouths shut. So hopefully, I don't know, it's not enough planes. It was only a couple dozen planes compared to the hundreds that the Russians have. But if all the pilots are flying like the Ghost of Kiev, it might be enough. He's got 19 kills now. So if the Ukrainians can do a 19 to 20 to 1 kill ratio, maybe they stand a chance. But it's better that they get more planes and more air defense and get something like the Patriot missile. Send some NATO can send some advisors in civilian clothes, and they can tell the Ukrainians what buttons to push. That way their hands aren't dirty. Patriot's a pretty advanced system, so you would definitely need to bring some people over who know how to run it. But we definitely need this no-fly zone. We have Lukashenko now talking about carpet bombing Ukraine, and how Putin and Lukashenko are talking about how Ukraine shouldn't exist. And if you want to hit something, Lviv is the cultural capital. So I don't know if that's a veiled threat to Lviv or something, to do indiscriminate carpet bombing, but that's the way I took it. That's the way I'm reading between the lines. So it's got me a bit nervous. Before they were mostly hitting the, military infrastructure, mostly. They were hitting some buildings and stuff, but now if they're actually deliberately targeting and making that their prerogative, it's bad. It's definitely not good. But on a brighter note, I read an article in the Sun, British newspaper, that the Russian Marines are mutinied their own ship and refused to fight. So maybe word is getting out to the professional soldiers that this is not saving Russians from a Nazi genocide, but this is actually like a Russian genocide of the Ukrainians and a Russian attack on democracy. And so it looks like information might be getting to professional soldiers, and they may be allowed to have their mobile phones and have more privileges and access to information. If Russian Marines mutinied a ship, it means they learned something. They got some news somewhere along the lines and changed their mind. Now, an interesting advice I saw, if you want to reach Russian people in Russia, is to go on Google Maps in Moscow, Minsk, and St. Petersburg and write in the restaurant reviews what's happening and post pictures of what's happening in Russian language if possible, and let them know. It seems like a back door to get around all the blocks that they have is to go on the Google reviews and the Google Maps and do that. So I started doing that. And what I found interesting in Minsk is there's so many American hotels and American restaurants like McDonald's in Minsk. How did that happen? How did that happen? I know we have McDonald's in Russia and it's incredibly popular. Maybe they could be an information source. I don't know. They could print on all the labels and packaging, what's going on. Of course, probably that wouldn't last long. They would get away with it for a little while, and then people would go to jail and stuff. But I think this Google Maps writing in the restaurant reviews would be a good thing. Well, that's all I got today. It's around 7 o'clock in the morning, and I want to have some breakfast and enjoy this day before the 8 p.m. curfew. It's starting to tighten up a little bit, but have a nice day and try to make the best of it as you can. Take care.